important, and it's actually one of the things that I look at when I choose my units, simply because what this length does is that you have the chance to effectively repel an enemy's attack. In other words, I suppose, block the enemy's attack. And how this works is that the values of attack skill and defense skill are used to calculate the hit chance, right? But another value that's kind of plugged in there is this weapon length. So for example, if you have a spear versus a sword, the spear will probably be able to deflect the sword a few times simply because its length is higher. So with that said, spears are fairly decent for defending, or rather for defending or keeping your units alive, and they don't do as much damage, though. That is the big thing. So these guys, the Jotun Spearmen and the Jotun Axemen, these guys are supposed to be our linebacker troops, so our staple troops. They're fairly expensive at 30 gold, but the main thing is that they cost 39 resources, and as you can see here, we're only generating 160 resources, so we probably won't be able to buy a whole bunch of these guys. The elite version of their units are the Huskars over here, so they also have spears and shields. They have, I think, slightly lower protection, but they do slightly more damage, if I'm not mistaken. No, they seem to have slightly more morale. Here's the axe version of them. So yeah, same damage, slightly different stats and morale and stuff. Overall, I don't think it's, actually, no, these Huskars are actually a little cheaper in resources, so that's one thing that we should note. Some of the more interesting units we have are the Jotun Hurlers, and because our guys are giants, these guys effectively function as siege equipment, making it so that we can take down besieged castles quicker using this trait here. I feel like that's the only real important thing about them. They have decent weapon stats, low on protection once again. Those guys we might see quite a bit because for some of these factions, they don't have catapults or siege equipment, so it will be fairly useful in forming a siege corps and then sending that down to fortresses where our allies are sieging and using them as, siege equipment, really. So that's kind of cool. Two of the units that we should talk about are the Herdmen over here and the Garm Herding, I think. So the Jotun Herdmen over here are some of the more elite troops there are over here. They have decent morale, rather great morale apparently at 13. Decent protection, again, really high hit points and stuff like that. But the main thing about them is that they do a ton of damage at 13 damage with a weapon length of 3, which is average. I mean, that's decent, and I think it's actually pretty decent when you think about it, when you take into considering that these guys are giants and the majority of the people we'll be fighting are regular troops. Speaking of which, I want to figure out what is the size of regular troops' spear length. So only 4. With that said, then our spears and our swords aren't too bad then. The one that I'm training a lot of are these guys right here, which I'll actually train one more this turn. These guys, the Garm Herding, are holy units. So holy units, in addition to buying them with resources and income, we'll have to pay holy points for, and holy points are like resources in that you generate them on a turn-by-turn basis, but you don't store any of them, so it's better to use all of them up as you go, as typically these will be giving you guys these units, the holy units, will be the OP units, provided that you can produce a lot of them. So these guys, fairly expensive on gold, decently cheap on resources, really cheap on resources actually, when you take into consideration the fact that all of our other units cost like 3 times as much. These guys, high on hit points, average on protection, considering that a regular human would have, a regular unit would have 10, but in our terms, this is actually fairly low. The thing that I'm mainly using these guys for is that simply because they're cheap on resources, so we can buy a lot of them. They have decently low encumbrance, but the main thing is that they have this berserker trait, they have the holy trait, or either the sacred trait, and then they have a ton of damage and decent weapon length. So you saw back there, a normal spear's length was 4, and these guys' battle lengths are at length 4. So they're kind of even there, so that you can even go through defensive units pretty easily like that. And with this 31 value, you'll typically be able to smite down any non-giant or any non-beast creature, so the majority of humanoids. So that's pretty useful. But the main thing is that they can go berserk, meaning that if they get wounded, they can get a better buff to their strength, and I think their movement speed, making them even more deadlier, making them do even more damage. So I would say that these guys can go maybe toe-to-toe with like elephants, provided that they have a few of them ready right there. So yeah, these guys are fairly tough. What makes them even tougher is the fact that they're sacred units, meaning that we can give them some blessings, provided that we have a priest on the battlefield. So if we assign a lot of these guys along with a priest and send them into battle, what we can do with them is that we can bless them with a few benefits from Das's faction. Now, the important thing is what blessings that we chose. I believe Das has picked out a few things, namely a +5 to protection when we bless our units, making it so that these guys have really good protection compared to their costs, and more importantly compared to regular humanoids. We gain 1 level in magic resistance, meaning that we have slightly higher magic resistance, making it so that obviously magical spells don't hurt us as much, and that'll be actually fairly useful. And the reason I say that is that magic is a big portion of the game. You'll see a lot of AoE spells being plucked down, and that'll help us keep our troops alive. The other thing is that we can also have a reinvigoration thing plugged down at our units, which will remove some of their fatigue as the battle goes on, meaning that these guys can stay at 100% combat efficiency throughout the fight. So that's another thing. So that's pretty much all we have to talk about today. I mean, oh, and we also have one specialty commander, but I've actually got to run soon, so we'll talk about him next time. For now, all you guys had to know is that, yeah, we've covered our units. Our general plan is to keep some water mages along with our armies. Our armies will be blessed with the goad, and we'll be sending in just hordes of giants into the fight, and currently I'm trying to sandwich this group. The Abyssians have broken through over here, apparently on this turn, so we will have to keep track of these guys, and we'll fight a fight with them later on, but right now we're just going to try to keep pace. So I'll see you guys later on, where we explain the battle details a little bit more. Today I'm kind of out of time, so yeah, see you guys then.